Welcome, everyone. My name's Matt O'Connor. I'm the Dean of the School of Business here at Quinnipiac University. And this is actually a co-sponsored event. It's a Dean's Distinguished Speaker event for both the School of Business and the School of Engineering. So I do want to acknowledge all of our friends and colleagues and all the students from engineering as well as business who are here today. And I'm sure there are some students from across the university as well. So today we have Mr. Javier Polit with us. He is the Chief Information Officer at Procter and Gamble, and he's been in that position since April of 2017. He was also Global Information Officer prior to this at Coca-Cola and served as in a second role at Coca-Cola as Global Director of Business Intelligence and Distribution Systems. Prior to Coca-Cola, Mr. Polit had executive roles at Office Depot and Nations Bank. Earlier in his career, he was a financial analyst at Coopers & Lybrand. He serves on the National Hispanic Advisory Board at Republican National Committee and was CIO of the Year for the Latinos in Information Sciences and Technology Association. Mr. Polit did the Advanced Management Program at the Harvard Business School. He holds a Master's in Business Administration from Purdue University. He earned his Bachelor's in Business Administration from the University of Miami and has additional master's degrees from Budapest University of Economics and Science, Tilburg University, and Barry University. So please join me in welcoming Javier Polit.
Thank you. Matt, thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Everybody can hear me well? Well, great. Well, listen, my intent today is probably to walk you through about 3 or 4 slides. And really, it's your time. It's your time to ask questions and see what you're thinking about industry, Procter and Gamble, and maybe what you're studying. I love academia. I always joke around and say if I didn't have the responsibilities that I have today, I'd be somewhere pursuing my PhD. But I have other responsibility in today's day and age. So, what I wanted to share with you is what has my first 18 months looked like at Procter and Gamble. And it is a time of disruption because in our industry today, things are changing so rapidly that business plans are no longer 36 months or 60 months. I think they're more 18 months and 24 months. I put together a 3-year plan in regards to what our IT roadmap is going to look like, and I'm already finding myself revising that one, but also starting to build the next 36 months and what that's going to look like. I think business plans today and technology plans are dynamic. They're not going to be static for 24 months or 36 months. So I want to share a little bit of what that looks like and maybe things that I'm focusing on and how the role of the CIO has evolved, because it's very, very different to be a CIO today than it was maybe even 10 years ago. So some of the things that I've been focusing on at P&G is these are 5 strategic pillars that I've been working on, and it always comes down to the biggest intellectual capital that you have, and that's your organization and your people. How do we continue to invest, and how do we change the way that they think about learning and having an intellectual curiosity? And all of you, as you enter the business world, you have a personal accountability. The companies are going to invest in you and they're going to train you in certain areas, but you have a personal accountability to make certain that you continue to develop yourself outside of that environment also, and to understand what's happening in the industry and do a lot of industry sensing. The other thing that I've been focusing on, you can imagine these big companies, 183 years, they've done a lot of acquisitions. They have a very complicated landscape from a technology footprint. How do you simplify the environment? How do you look at opportunities to drive down economics so you can reinvest in some platforms that are going to be very, very exciting for the next generation of leaders? How do we keep all of you engaged in the work that we're doing by having some exciting platforms and exciting and challenging capabilities that all of you could continue to grow and develop? Strategic and innovative partners. I looked very quickly at the landscape and said, who are we doing business with today? And are they the most innovative companies that we should be partnering with? And you start thinking, I'll give you an example. When we looked at the cloud strategy that we had at Procter and Gamble, we had about 15 different cloud partners. And that was way too many. Today, you could arguably say, if you look at the Gartner upper right-hand quadrant, or just on work that I've done in the industry, you probably say Amazon, certainly the leader. They were the first movers in the cloud space many years before Microsoft decided to get into that space, with Azure being the second most prominent cloud provider, Google fit for purpose, and then there's a small company which found the gap in the industry, as I always say, called VirtuStream, who decided to provide cloud services for SAP platforms. They got a big piece of the market. Those then became our 4 strategic cloud partners. And I said, all the other companies that we're working with, that, yeah, they do work in that space, but are they investing billions of dollars in that technology like these 4 are? And the answer clearly was they're not. So the question to me, to my organization, was why are we doing business with them? We need to make certain that we choose partners that are strategic, that are going to help us differentiate, enable us to deliver. And I can tell you, the size of our databases and the trillions of lines of data that we have by the 5.6 billion consumers who touch our products on a daily basis is too big to scale for some of those partners. I'm not going to tell you who that partner is, but today I have some challenges in regards to standing up some of the environments that we need to stand up because of the size of the data that we have. And those are just some challenges that still exist in the industry that we have to work with. And then there's a changing landscape today when it comes to our customers. Our customers are the Walmarts of the world, the Krogers of the world that carry our products, and our consumers. And some of the customers today, there's a changing landscape where Kroger and Target and Walmart would say that Amazon's a competitor. So you cannot put our data on the Amazon cloud. So that changes my architecture and my strategy. So then I have to use the Azure platform. But then as I use the Azure platform for my big customers, and then I possibly could use the Amazon platform for my consumers, when I have my data scientists build algorithms and work closely together, I need to pull some of that data from the customer database and the consumer database to build algorithms. And by the way, every time you pull data in and out of these cloud providers, they generate revenue. There's cost for egress and ingress of data coming into those clouds. So it clearly changes the architecture. Amazon being more sophisticated has a 3-tier architecture. Azure a little bit more complicated. I'll use the word, I just want to be careful on the words that I use here. Has a 5-tier architecture. So it makes it more complicated for us to do work. And thus, the data scientists have to go in and mine in different areas. And then if you think about data and you think about cloud services, when you do businesses with the Amazon retail side of their business and the Alibaba retail side of the business, they have our consumers' data because our consumers are buying from them. So we have to go into their data environments with our data scientists and couple with their data scientists and build some algorithms to understand consumer behaviors better. How do we make certain that we have better purchasing transactions, larger transactions, and we're sharing data? So I think you would ask CIOs in capacities of mine that we would say those are colleagues today, but in the future, who knows what they're going to do with our data? Are they going to charge us to go and be able to go in and mine the data? And there's already some thinking around that. And that's why we believe that every company is definitely a technology company, but every company also needs to be a data company. And you need to own your own data. So a lot of strategy around innovative partners and then disruptive technologies and platforms. It's no longer about the big 3-letter companies that used to manage technology and lead technology. It's about the small disruptive companies that are popping up in Israel and have been popping up for a long time in California and now popping up. If you do a heat map of the US about innovative countries, you'll probably see 20 to 30 red dots now of different countries that have great innovative capabilities. And it's about taking a risk and looking at those small innovative companies and introducing them into your organization and making certain that you have disruptive platforms, but not just for the enterprise and for you to win and differentiate yourself in the market, but also to make it exciting for the next generation of leaders, all of you, when you come into our enterprises, to make certain that you have some exciting work that's going to challenge you, that you feel challenged every day and that you're contributing, and not having some old monolithic platforms to come in and work for, because I think you guys have a choice, and all of you are in incredible demand to companies like ours. So those are some of the areas that I've been working on and made some significant improvement. I just throw that out there to maybe exercise your minds a little bit for some questions. And as I talk to the organization, one of the things that I'm striving to do is seeing how do we become industry leading and move into the upper right-hand quadrant in regards to how we perform from an IT function within the organization. And those are some of the things that I measure based on external indexes and also measure with some of the key technology companies in regards to how we're performing. And I can tell you that we are lagging in certain areas, and a lot of big companies are, because we integrate and we acquire companies and we start focusing on running them and we don't go back and clean the whole application landscape. And we have individuals developing on platforms that if we were to leave, it'd be a complicated situation because there's not a lot of skill sets in certain areas. And today, we're looking at replacing those very, very quickly. And you know, it drives productivity. At the end of the day, I could tell you that in my Chief Information Security Officers area, we've been able to reduce the organization dramatically and move those individuals into other areas of IT by bringing in technologies that allow us to monitor our network in a much better fashion than we used to, and tools that are basically helping us also elevate the internal capabilities of that organization. And we're being tough in the companies too, in regards to making certain that every single one of our team members that works in our CISO's area is now a certified information security professional. So we're forcing now certifications in different verticals and functions inside the organization. So don't think that when you're done here and you get your degree that you're not going to go study some more and get some other tests and more certifications. But I think that's important because it keeps you current, and that's the only reason we do it. We want to make certain that you're current as you're going forward. And we are making some good progress in this space in a lot of different areas, but a lot of work still to be done. And today, when you look at the role of the CIO, it's very different to the role that I was playing, and I shared this with some of the students that I met with today, 20 some odd years ago when I was working in a data center mounting tapes. So if you think about what that's looked like for me in my career and having to transform myself and making certain that I did some of the things that I shared with all of you, making certain I understood the industry and what I was doing and performing external industry sensing and trying to maintain myself current. Because like I said, we all have a personal accountability to make certain that we understand what's happening in the industry and how we maintain ourselves current. And today the role of the CIO, maybe 5-10 years ago I was just focused on which is the big ERP initiative that I got to implement and how I'm going to deliver it on time and how I'm going to deliver it on budget and what's the value creation. Today the CIO presents to the board on a quarterly basis. Today the CIO speaks to investor relations every 2 years and talks about the strategy. Today the CIO works closely with the business partners and pushes back on them when they want a capability that they want to build that doesn't have the right margin or the right share growth. So it's very, very different. I'm focusing 30% of my time on the organization in regards to how I'm going to develop the skill sets that we need to differentiate ourselves between our principal competitors and what are the disruptive tool sets that I need my team members to learn to really give us a competitive advantage. So the role of the CIO is very different than what I used to do maybe 10 years ago. But it goes back to what I keep telling every one of you, right, is you need to make certain that you continue to rebrand yourself, make certain you remain current and transform yourself as a leader because things are changing, especially in the fields of technology and even the way that, we look at business today. I never thought 20 years ago I'd be managing a multi-billion-dollar budget that I have to be worrying about exchange rates and different currencies and how I'm investing in depreciation cycles in different country and how I look at goodwill and how I look at depreciation and the different, what we call gap principles in different countries. So the role of the CIO is very, very different today than it was. And I think it's going to continue to transform. So I think those are the only slides I had for you today. I just wanted to give you just a broad, quick perspective because really it's about all of you and it's your time for me today. And I know we're going to take a break in about 30 minutes. So I wanted to give all of you an opportunity to ask some questions of anything that's top of mind for all of you.
We have a couple of microphones, one here and another here, so come on down and ask your question.
Or you could just...
I'll walk up to you. No, I'll repeat the question.
How many certifications do you require for digital law certification? How many do you require for
Yeah. So the question was, how many certifications do we require? So it depends on what area of business you're in or function. So if you're in information security, we require CISSP. There's also certification from a networking perspective for the network team in regards to the technology that we're using for the equipment, for our software engineers that are performing software orchestration on our hardware. So we have probably about 6 different certifications our function now that everybody has to take depending what area you're in and what work you're performing, just to build a general understanding. And then, by the way, we make those certifications available to the entire organization. So whether you're working in information security or not, and you just have intellectual curiosity, and you want to take the certification, we'll pay for it anyway. The more I see of that, the more excited I get about the organization and the way that they're thinking. Fred.
Can you talk about the company's use of blockchain and blockchain type technologies?
Yeah, so the question was about blockchain technology. So I can say we've probably been some of the early adopters in blockchain, and we use it today in our financial systems and in our ledger systems. And some of the blockchain work that we've done has been able to allow us to move some blockchain combined with Bitcoin. We've been able to move some currencies out of certain continents back into other continents so that we could get our funds back. But we have been adopting blockchain, pretty early adopters of it, and it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a huge proliferation in probably the next 5 to 10 years. So we have some use cases we could share. I had offered that to Matt as well.
Yes. What's the
systems are you implementing to make sure no data breaches are happening? Because there's so many nowadays, like with Facebook and everything. So I'm just wondering what you're personally doing and P&G as a whole.
That's a phenomenal question. I'm probably going to take a few minutes to answer that question. We spent a lot of time talking about cybersecurity. It's the top of mind of every single board member. I spent a lot of time with this administration. I was recently at a committee briefing with Senator Daniel Coates, who leads the Department of National Defense and Intelligence for the country, talking about cybersecurity. And I was just recently with our cyber commander, Paul Nakasone, because there's a lot to do in this space. And we have a lot of nations that are coming even into our networks as businesses. And what they'll do is they'll come into you, and I'm going to talk about security in a second, and they'll use your IP addresses and then go outside through your network, and as they're trying to perform the work that they perform, whether it's espionage or any type of other work, they're using your IP addresses, and all of a sudden, you could possibly get a phone call from the Federal Bureau of Investigation saying that they discovered that one of your IP addresses is hitting up against an area that it shouldn't be, and then, of course, you say, well, we have no business doing that, we would not do that, and then you could possibly find out that there's individuals inside your network. So there's a lot of live cases like that, and now the Security and Exchange Commission has changed and recommended to CIOs in this area. We report into the head of the audit committee that we could use our discretion to have attorney-client privilege discussions if we think that there's a material potential risk that we need to inform, and you could exercise that right, and you need to be familiar with that right as a CIO. So a lot of changing landscape in this space. One of the things that is 15 CIOs that met with the United States cybersecurity team, and we talked about the United States government being a little bit quicker on declassifying information to our industry so that we could work with technology companies to provide products that will better safeguard our nation and our companies. So I think we'll start seeing a lot more about that. And for those of you that are curious, there is a DNI report on worldwide threats that just came out February of 2018 as the United States government now starting to declassify more of this information. It'd be a great read for all of you. You guys should just be curious of what's happening in this space. So now to answer your question, what we're doing internally, look, the first line of defense is your network, right? At the end of the day. And you got to be aware also of all the devices that you have in your enterprises that are edges, on the edges of the network, thus our smartphones that are connected. So how do we start there? Because that's an entry point to start off with. And companies like ours, we're changing our whole network design. We're going to go into start building something we call software-defined networks, where you have the ability to now cut off a segment of your network. So if you find that there's been an entry into a facility or a manufacturing facility some part in the world, you can immediately, through your Security and Operations and Control Center, cut off that piece of the network. So we have software that's monitoring constantly. We know the IP addresses that we have. We know what IP addresses we're introducing because there's new hires and we give them new devices. So we have systems that basically are integrated that tell us that's an IP address that we don't recognize, that we did not activate. So then we would immediately, through software, cut that piece of the network off so that a virus doesn't travel through the network. And then we start targeting and understanding where that IP address could have evolved, right? And there's a challenge in that because third-party risk management is something that's very, very complicated. You can imagine, I'm just going to use in any country, pick a country around the world, we may have an issue with a manufacturing line. We have a local partner there that helps us resolve problems with the manufacturing line. They bring in their laptop that has their software that's going to run diagnostics on our equipment, and they plug it into our network. I don't know if there's a virus on there. There could be a virus on there. And there have been some purposeful malware that's been installed in those companies because they know they connect into networks of companies like ours. But that's a big complication on how you start educating and making certain that the individuals working in your facilities don't let that happen. So there's a lot of complications. That's why you need to be more sophisticated on the network. And then we've sunset a lot of tools and brought in some very new tools that have enabled us to monitor our network. And one of the things that I changed also was our Security and Operations and Control Center was managed externally by a partner when I joined the company. Today, it's managed internally. We have 7x24. We have new tool sets. We have new team members that are trained in that space, and we monitor our network. I think that's strategic for all companies. If you're not managing your own network in today's day and age, I just don't think that's too smart. But there's companies that still choose to have a third party do that. We decided not to. But it's top of mind every day. Companies like ours are making significant, tens and tens of millions of dollars of investments in this space to secure the enterprise. It's a very good question. And then the last thing I'll leave you with, and remember, big companies like ours have huge dependencies, right? I'll share with you in the last virus of when Petya, I don't know if any of you heard of Petya, the last cyber virus that came out. It impacted Maersk and many other companies. Well, Maersk is a big supply chain provider for us in regards to moving our raw goods so we can manufacture and produce an end product. So when they were impacted, we were impacted. So there's a lot of dependency. So that's why there's a big push for all corporate enterprises to really do a good job in this space, to make sure that all our dependencies and our adjacencies on how we operate continue to operate when these situations occur. And we're having a lot of sessions to work together to improve. You have a second question to the first one.
Going off that with the dependencies and insourcing and outsourcing, how you said you have to pay for that, would the data breaches, if they were to happen through the insourcing, outsourcing, is that also a dependency issue? Would you also get hit by one of them leaking any sort of information?
If one of our, you talking about cloud providers or?
Yeah, someone that you're insourcing or outsourcing information with, like a different company.
Oh yeah, so we look at everything. Today, that's why I said the role of the CIO and the CISO, even if you think about any of our functions that operates with a third party that they do business with, or to make it very simple, if you look at their legal function. Our legal function works with many attorneys around the world in different agencies, and you could argue that some of our artifacts are in those partners' networks. We go and examine those networks and have ways on how we push data back and forth, because our data is now leaving our safeguarded enterprise, and what we believe is a safeguarded enterprise, and you're never complacent. And you never say, by the way, that you've done a very good job. That's an area you don't want to say that publicly, because maybe some people may take you up on the challenge, but which you don't want. But yeah, we always have to be looking at wherever our data is going in and out and how safe those environments are. And then naturally the classification of the data that we're pushing in and out as well. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Arnold Hightower. Will Procter and Gamble be issuing cryptocurrencies similar to the idea of dollar concept? And what are your views on Bitcoin?
So what was the first part of the question?
Will Procter and Gamble be issuing their own cryptocurrency?
Yeah, okay, so will we be, yeah, I don't think that we'll be issuing our own cryptocurrency, but I was just, so I do believe in cryptocurrency, and I do believe it's going to be a financial commonplace. I actually was saying maybe about a week and a half ago, I was with some individuals to figure that there's going to be a role called your cryptocurrency wealth management agent, right? Because the JP Morgans of the world and Morgan Stanleys of the world are going to have cryptocurrency, and the way that we face off with some of those individuals will be very different. So I do believe there's a big space for that. It's coming. I think there's just no standard or structure right now, so you have different cryptocurrencies coming up in Europe and different continents, and I think it's going to take a while, but I do believe in my lifetime it will be commonplace.
And what are your views on Bitcoin?
Bitcoin, so look, I think companies need to have, and this will answer your question, a Bitcoin capability, because today, as we know, when you have certain cyber threats and you need to break a key, you need to have a Bitcoin currency to possibly perform a transaction to get the key to unlock information that's been perpetrated. So yeah, so we do have Bitcoin capability. Yes.
You mentioned that you present to the board on a quarterly basis. Would you say that your focus changes as the company moves from periods of growth to decline?
You know, that's a great question, but I think today the way that the business leaders look at technology, you know, like I said earlier, every company is a technology company today. Now, naturally, you know, I have budgets that I need to manage, and depending on how the company is performing, we manage ourselves by a percentage of investment to total revenue, and there's some areas and guidelines based on industry as a percentage of spend that you want to be within, but it also depends on where you are on the maturity curve, right? So I could tell you on the maturity curve, if I use cybersecurity, we're investing significantly in there. So if you were to measure me there, I probably would be out of line based on a mature, stable organization. So I think all those things are changing, and the board, I don't think that the board would ever tell me, no, you can't have money to invest in cybersecurity. They may tell me, no, you can't have money to do other things, but there's certain areas that just are table stakes today. So it depends. Yes, and we'll go here next.
You talked about a lot, like sharing information with different like supply chain channel partners. How do you incentivize or like motivate them to adopt these like newer safer technologies?
Yeah, so the question was about third-party partners that we have and how we incentivize them in regards to applying some of these technologies. You can imagine that that's very challenging, because some of them we deal with small partners and large partners and partners in different geographies, and it's difficult to make certain that that they can afford the economics to invest in these type of technologies. So what we do is we could have a safe landing space where they push data, we examine it, and then we basically pull it back in. So there's different ways to do those things, because at the end of the day, we want to be fair in regards to working with all types of suppliers around the world, regardless of size. So there's different practices that we have in place for that.
So I know the workplaces, different workplaces are becoming more diverse. Can you just speak upon some of the diversity training programs that you guys implement or plan to implement in the future?
Yeah. So the question was around that diversity and diversity training in the organization. So it is top of mind. I can tell you right now, in my function, we have 29% female gender diversity in the organization. We have a good presence of Asian team members, not a good presence of Hispanic team members. African ancestry is misrepresented as well. We're not doing a good job. I just came into the company about 16 months, like I said, and I think some of the thought changes that I've been doing is in regards to how do we build models that are sustainable. And I was talking about that over lunch a little while ago to one of the faculty. And you need to have some sustainable models in regards to how you do these things going forward. And I've started to do that, but unfortunately those sustainable models won't yield the right results for 3 or 4 years. I've made a commitment to have an organization that has 35% gender diversity by 2020, and then my objective would be to get beyond 40. So we're doing a lot of training in the organization. I have a presentation on Monday to Hispanic and Asian leaders in the organization. So we're very, very aware. We just need to do a better job. But the problem is that we're not generating enough of STEM, in my function, STEM degrees in the nation to be able to recruit, because there's so much competition right now also, right? We had a meeting with top 20 CIOs and we were talking about how we're stealing each other's technologists, And then you have companies, this is just recent, we lost a data scientist to a company that moved us around very quickly off of our phones, and there's a few of them, so I'm not calling anyone out, and decided to pay one of my team members more than 2 times their salary. And that's gonna happen. And it's a race for talent today, so we have a lot of work to do, and we need to depend on academic institutions like Quinnipiac to help us make sure we get the right level of resources. The other thing too is that the landscape is changing. I think my shortest tenure in my career in any one of my employers was 7 or 8 years. I don't know if the next generation of leaders is going to go work for a company 10, 15, even 7 years. I think maybe it's a 5-year run, and you guys want to maybe take a little sabbatical, and then go back and go do another 5-year run. There's companies now that are progressive, that are digitally native, that are talking about attracting young leaders and giving them, after 5 years, you could take a 1-year sabbatical. I'm in the industry like 30 years. I haven't had a sabbatical yet, but I'd love to have one. So, but yeah, so there's a lot of different things that we need to do, and we just need to be aware that there's going to be a lot of changes in the workforce. But we are focused on diversity, and I think it brings, a great different. I was talking about that today at lunch too, right? We got to be respectful of diversity of thought, diversity of belief, and how we approach things. And I think today, for our industry, I said this earlier, I've said this many times, it's a she economy. We live in a she economy. Women control over $1 trillion purchase power. Last year, women decided on household cars for the first time in history what they were going to be more than men. And I joked around today at lunch and I said, we think we know what we like to eat and what we like to consume until we get married, and then women tell us that we had it wrong all along, and we start buying new things and consuming different things. But that's a little bit of humor. But there's also some valid proof and empirical data that says that companies perform better when you have a diverse board and you have women sitting at the table. So we're focused on it. Yes.
You talked a bit before about innovation and tech and the problems with it. And I want to know, as a CIO, what issues do you face with making sure that the tech that you have is as efficient as possible, so that you do provide the best for your customers?
Yeah, so naturally, when we look at efficiency, we measure efficiency in a lot of different ways in the organization. So naturally, we could talk about how much we invest from a technology dollar perspective for each one of them, the employees we have, and what does that number look like, and are we spending enough or not spending enough, and compare ourselves to the industry. But when I look at innovation, I don't try to measure my spend. I try to measure it by, is it the most disruptive technology or platform that we could have, right? So that's really going to give us a competitive edge. And because we're a company that's been around 180 years, for us, it's not about winning next year, or winning 2 years, or winning 3 years from now. How do we win the next 5 or 10 years from now and make it sustainable? So we do have an organization in my team that just focuses on innovation. So we have relationships in Israel, Silicon Valley, in China, a lot of different markets. And all their work is to get complicated issues that the business is having and how we apply innovation. And what we've done too is we've teamed up with a lot of leading technology companies and consulting companies. And if they want to work with us in our innovation lab, they need to invest as well. And invest from resource time to investing economics to partner up. And then we get into agreements where we share the intellectual capital. Can you take that product to market 3 or 5 years later? You don't want them to go to market the first year because then it's competitive for you with your principal competitor. So we do have an innovation arm. We invest significantly in that space. We have a whole ventures group on the business side, and we have an innovation side. Because I think all of you will recognize and experience that physical products are becoming digital products, right? So, which is the whole proliferation of the Internet of Things, which had a whole bunch of complications of cybersecurity and a whole bunch of other things too. But so there's a big push that we drive from the IoT of things, working with our R&D teams in regards to products that you all will consume and you'll use in your homes, in regards to how we innovate in that space as well. So there's a lot of different dimensions to that. And we also now could think about, I remember when I was at the Coca-Cola company, we acquired a technology company, right? Because I truly believe every company is a technology company, and we look at that today too. So if it's going to be disruptive enough and give you speed and separation between your principal competitors, maybe you acquire a technology company. So those are all things on the table today. Oh, man, sorry, I was...
Can you talk a little bit about the traits that you look for when you're hiring people out of college? Not so much the technical skills, I think we've covered that a lot, but maybe some of the other traits that you look for.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and we talked a little bit. I'd hire a couple of people today if I had an opportunity. But yeah, look, I think to me, when you come out of a program, you're going to have some expertise naturally that you've studied and you've built and through your internships, and we'll look at all that. But I think having individuals that demonstrate intellectual curiosity is important. I think individuals that understand that they have a desire to continue to learn and build their capabilities, because nobody's going to manage your career. No single employer has ever managed my career. We have a personal accountability to do that when you enter the workforce, when you leave the academic institution. We want to make certain that individuals that talk to us about a global perspective, a much broader perspective. And I was talking to some of the faculty in regards to some areas of when you interview, what you want to ask the employer. Don't just be prepared for the questions that the employer is going to ask you. Be prepared to ask the employer questions. We want to see how you're thinking about our company. We want to know how you're thinking about the world. We want to understand that you have intellectual curiosity. When you go and work in the enterprise, don't just focus on the work that you're going to be doing in that vertical. Understand what the key business drivers are. Do some research around the company to see what they're trying to do. Ask them, if I am the incumbent of choice, what does that look like? What does success look like? And when they explain that to you, say, well, what type of support do you provide me if I were to join you to be able to make sure that it's a successful first year? So we look at those kind of questions in regards to how the person we're interviewing is looking at the whole global enterprise. Today, your generation thinks more about the world and the planet and green than I ever thought of when I was your age, right? So, and we all have a social responsibility. Ask us, hey, what's your social responsibility? What are you doing from a social responsibility? I want to be proud if I'm going to go join your company about things that you're doing to help the world and help the planet, right? So, so those are kind of things that we look at, just having much a broader perspective. And we want individuals that are going to come into the organization and challenge the status quo, right? Don't be complacent when you go into an organization and say, okay, this is how we do it. Ask them, well, why are you doing this? I have an idea. And the other thing that I'm going to tell you that I told some of the students that I met with earlier, there's a big challenge today in our industry. Today, when all of you come out of these degrees in technology and computer information systems, even in business, you're probably going to be more technically savvy than the people you're going to be reporting into. Beyond the reason of a doubt. I have an issue today with that whole middle management telling me, Javier, we're recruiting all these technical, almost native technologists that are coming to the organization. We don't know half of the things that they know. How can we lead them? And you're going to have to be patient, and you're going to have to bring data, and you're going to have to manage upward to make certain that they understand what you're trying to drive and bring data and bring facts, which is very different. When I entered the workforce, the individuals that I worked for understood technology better than me back then. It wasn't as sophisticated and complex as it is today, right? But those are some of the things that they're going to be looking at, and I think you need to be aware of that. But we look at individuals that are willing to challenge the status quo, right? Don't be, and you know, I would tell everybody, never be complacent, be constructively discontent, right? So those are things we're looking for. Yes?
I'm wondering how IT organizations are changing or should change to kind of be as responsive as possible to businesses. Are they changing? Or?
No, we have changed significantly in our business models. Before, you used to see that it was pretty centralized, the whole IT function. Today, and I was telling this to some of the students that I had met with earlier today, they're going to be spending probably 70% of their time in the business. They will be, we embed them in the business today. We train them, we give them the skill sets. I'm accountable to make certain that they have the right capabilities, the right training, the right development, the rating, but they spend time in the business. And that's why when you go and spend time in the business, because you need to provide the business with capabilities and insights to make decisions very, very quickly, make certain that you also understand, you know, what are the key business drivers in that business, right, that you're supporting. Because you're going to bring a wealth of technical capabilities, and you'll see things, if you understand the business, that can help them continue to win. But they're embedded in the business. And, you know, today, you know, I speak to Sanjay in Singapore every 2 weeks on the phone, and our job as a CIO is to build a governance of a framework, and these are the tools you can use, and these are the platforms, and these are the partners, and other than that, run as fast as you can. As fast as that president will let you run as fast as you can to deliver capabilities, and I want you to talk to your counterpart in Latin America, who's Jose, who talks to your counterpart in China, who's Jerry, and make sure that we share and collaborate what we're doing and what we're building to make sure that we have speed on that delivery to go to market very quickly and win. But they're embedded in the business. So my job is sometimes I'm on the phone and I have a call at 11 o'clock at night or 7 in the morning because time differences. My staff meetings start at 7 in the morning. So guys in North America aren't too excited about that. I'm not too excited about being in the office at 7 either sometimes. But that means it's 7 or 8 p.m. in Asia and they're on the call with us, right? So it's just the world is flat now for sure. But they're embedded in the business. Yes. I know we have like 7 more minutes before a break or so, right?
Okay, a question on consumer data. Gathering it, protecting it,
Absolutely.
and also sharing it across your brand. So if I sign up for a Tide promotion, you tell Charmin that I use Tide. Or
You want some of our secrets behind the whole thing, right? So, yeah. So when we look, so one of the things that we've done is you always as a CIO, you got to look at enabling, optimizing, and transforming. Those are 3 levers you're constantly pushing and pulling on in different areas. So when we looked at our data strategy, we found out that we had some opportunities to better enable and to better optimize. Thus, we had to transform. So we have some data hubs that we're building in different geographies that has all that information in there. So we've now embedded data scientists in those regions of the world, wherever their data hub stands, so that they could pull out that information by category. And I do believe, because I can't really answer that 100% for a lot of different reasons, but I do believe today that we need to change our direct-to-consumer model, because today companies like ours don't have a true direct-to-consumer model. We count on the Amazons and the Alibabas and the Tencents and the Jingdongs to help us move some of our products. And in the future, who knows if we're going to be able to have access to that consumer data, because we need to continue to be a data company, and we have, like I said, trillions of data and petabytes of data on consumers as we build a consumer ID graph and get information from AC Nielsen's of the world to the Walmarts of the world to the direct consumer purchase of the world, and bring all that together to have thousands of attributes on an individual consumer. And if you could dimensionalize this, Alibaba says that they have 11,000 attributes for every one of their consumers. I don't know what I do that they would have 11,000 attributes on me, but maybe they just realized I took a pace to the right here. But it's getting that sophisticated, and a race to have that 360-degree view on the consumer to make certain that we understand consumer behaviors, the relevancy of information of when we send it to them, what are their perfect times. And we do know information. You know, we know when we're selling Pampers, and we know when a mom's coming out of the baby and wants to start doing hair again, and we have the shampoos, and we do all those things. So there's algorithms and sciences that are relevant as to when we have touch points with our consumers that are contextual and make sense. So there's a lot of strategy and a lot of work goes behind all that, but still plenty of room to optimize. We could do that one-on-one if you'd like. Okay.
You talked about your support for innovation. I wonder how much of that innovation, if any, is focused
on social consciousness, or my personal favorite, climate action. And
On which one, sorry?
Climate action. And if possible, how do you build that value to your bottom line?
How do we build the value to the bottom line? Yeah, so the question was around innovation and how we look at that from a social perspective. So when we look at innovate, to us, when we innovate for our consumers, we're basically trying to understand, so we do a lot of surveys and understanding what our consumers are looking for and what type of disruption they would like in their households. I can tell you there's some individuals that I know that say, you know, we're just being monitored too much, and I just tell them, look, it is what it is, and that's just part of the world today, and with the IoT of things, it's even gonna get more complicated. But I think in certain products, as they become more digital, and they're gonna be in our households, you know, people say Alexa's listening to us. I mean, I go to bed talking to Alexa, and I wake up talking to Alexa. I wake up in the morning, I say, can you give me a news brief, or tell me, you know, all kinds of things. We need to be respectful of some individuals not wanting that in their household. So we're thinking of a lot of digital products that would help improve consumers' lives on a daily basis. And the younger generations that are more digital native will embrace it. The older generations will not embrace it. So we're gonna have to go to market in two different distinct ways, I believe, over the next 10 to 15 years before we could really start digitizing with the next generation of leaders, of consumers. But right now, when we invest in those areas, it's really driven by what our consumers are asking us for. So it's really survey driven. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's the way that we look at innovation in regards to the products that we want to make digital products in the households. So, in honor of Oops. The Red Sox, oh, I think we just have one more, and then we talk about the Red Sox.
I was wondering what philanthropic causes and programs are important to the company and how they relate to the core values of the business.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can tell you, I am just incredibly proud of what we do in Procter and Gamble all around the world in regards to, I mean, I could give you many, many, many examples. And I have a 13-year-old daughter, so we do a lot of things. And, you know, I gave her a box the other day, and had a number of 143 in me. And it's just, we support different actions around the world. You know, the young ladies today around the world can't go to school on an average of 143 days a year because they just don't have the right hygiene to be able to go to school, right? So we focus those areas. We focus in helping young leaders in ways to go ahead and achieve different academic capabilities. And so we have an immense social responsibility around the world. And I could go through a whole laundry list, but it's important to us, and we contribute millions and millions of dollars every year. We need to do more, and I think every company needs to do more. And we like it when they come and ask us in communities to make certain exercise even more social responsibility, because it's the right thing to do. But yeah, there's a lot of different things we do. Yeah. And that's a great question. You should ask that to any employer you consider joining.
You talked earlier about the need for students to maintain their intellectual curiosity, not only here at school, but also throughout their careers. And we also noticed, I mean, you have several graduate degrees, and you're interested in, you said if you weren't working as a CIO, you might come back and work in education. Could you just talk a little bit about how you made your choices for graduate school, and what, kind of what thought process you went through, and what kind of connections you can draw from the next set of programs that these students might be in, and the career that you have right now?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I remember with my first international assignment, I lived in Europe, and I lived in France, and I was overseeing 17 countries. And I realized that everything I had learned at Coopers and Lybrand, and what I had learned in the financial services industry in regards to United States generally accepted accounting principles was very, very different. I couldn't follow some of the financial practices that we had in Europe. And I realized that I needed to study internationally and understand how those things were being done, and then also from a leadership perspective, right? Having for the first time managed individuals from different cultures, and how they behaved and how they interacted and what motivated them, and how to respect the ways that they approach work. And whether we went in France, we were working 35 hours a week, and my colleagues in Germany were working 50 hours a week, because if you remember, they changed the laws back then when it was 35-hour work weeks in France. I was living in France, and here I am, and I'm trying to lead a whole transformation. I'm saying my team's leaving after 35 hours of work in the week, and you had to learn all these things. And I said it was pretty important for me then to learn some of the principles in Europe, and that's when I went to Tilburg and to Budapest, and I made those choices because I felt that I needed to understand those things better. And I've always been a big believer that in any leadership role, you need to have a strong grasp and acumen for financials to make certain that decisions you're making as a CIO, what does that do to the P&L? What does it do to free cash flow? To make certain that when you go and have a discussion with the business leader on an investment, what does it mean to them? How much more of whatever they're doing do they need to sell to cover that cost that you're introducing to their P&L? So I wanted to understand those principles internationally because I already understood them in North America, and the best way for me to do it was through academia. And then I talked a lot about mentor-mentee relationships. I had a phenomenal colleague of mine who actually was in Pakistan. He was a CFO. He had a great interest in technology. He knew I had a great interest in finance and spent a lot of time with me, helping me to further accelerate my international understanding of finance. And I helped him excel in some more understanding of technology. So there was a lot of combinations of things that I thought that was important for me at that particular point in time in my career. So I'm kind of dating myself. I'm going back, probably about 15, 17 years. And it was important back then to understand that. So that's why some of the choices that I made from an academic perspective, and I was fortunate that the companies that I worked for funded those pursuits and gave me the time to go ahead and pursue them as well. So I think that was one of the areas of the question. What was the other piece, Matt? You had two pieces to the question.
Just with that, I think you covered it, but maybe what has that meant for you in the progression of your career?
So from a career perspective, I could tell you I'm probably outside of the CFO, who's the vice chairman, in that leadership team of 23 of us, I'm probably in the top 10% of understanding financials in the company, and understanding that in a good way, in a positive manner, where I can have conversations where they're saying, what's this CIO doing talking to me about the financials of the company? But I think it's important. I think it's very, very important. So that's why I decided to do some international studies as well. Yes.
Having a newer, not newer, being in for 16 months, are there any issues or major problems that you didn't anticipate that have happened you've had to overcome?
Yes, that's a great question. Everybody heard the question, 16 months, any big, at P&G, any big challenges that I've had? Yeah, absolutely. I think every company has a culture, right? And I bring a different culture, but a culture, in my case, has been blended with 5 different industries that I've had from an experience perspective. And P&G was normally seen as a company where you would go and you would join the company and you would think about my next 25 years at P&G, my next 30 years at P&G. So I think some of the challenges that I have is driving the change at the pace that I want to drive the change. So, one of my derailers, because you always got to be self-aware, is that I'm impatient at times and I want to move things very fast. And I could seize an opportunity. I've learned over years how to bring everybody with me and make certain everybody gets aligned before I move. But I see some opportunities and I haven't been able to do them as quickly as I would like to. And it takes me a couple of months of socializing and influencing, and then everybody's bulb goes off like mine went off a few months ago, and we move forward, and that's challenging, right, for me. So from a cultural perspective, it's been tough. I have all the freedoms that I need to do the things that I need to do, but sometimes it's hard to go in and tell a colleague, we need to change something that you've been doing this way for the last 10 years or 5 years or 6 years. So that's probably been the biggest challenge that I faced. But other than that, that's just part of the role and part of the equation, and that's why I was telling some of your other classmates that when you go into an interview, you ask them about the culture, right? And is it a culture that has integrated several companies where you have more diversity of thought? And you want a company that has a lot of diversity of thought in the leadership, because yours is going to be more welcomed and listened to a little bit more, right? For me, because of where I sit, like the chairman says, you have the same amount of stripes as everybody else on this floor, so just use them. So I do, but it's still difficult. But imagine the new team members that I brought in, that I stay close to in the organization, that are operating at a different level than me. It's going to be very challenging for them. I stay close to them, and I help them kind of drive. So those are things that you need to be aware of as you think about who your future employer is going to be. What's the culture? How has it been brought together, right? And be aware of that. So yes, it's a great question. Thank you. Oh yes.
So you were just talking about diversity of thought, and clearly you have very wise and interdisciplinary mindsets that you acquired through your time productive union. I just want to say, ask, what do you think the two most important disciplines help you create this mindset that you have?
Yeah, so the question was, I guess, what were the two disciplines that kind of helped me with the mindset that I have today? Yeah, so I think, and then I shared this early on with some of the students, I think early in my career I was coached. I've had 3 mentors in my career that I mentioned. I can mention their names clearly that had significant influence. I mean, you're going to work for a lot of different leaders. And there's going to be leaders in your career that you like what they do. And there's going to be leaders in your career you don't like everything that they do. And you need to figure out what pieces you want to take for yourself as you build your own personal brand. And your own personal brand is going to change as you evolve in your career and as you go from one company to another company. And I'd ask all of you to do what I've done when I've changed. I pause and I reflect on what my brand represented when I was at the previous employer before I started my new employer, and say, what are the things that I want to do differently now to build on, to have a different brand on how I'm viewed and how I'm seen and how I operate and how I lead in a company. And I think it was that coaching earlier in my career by a gentleman called Bob Conklin, who I still stay in contact with. Bob's in his 80s now. And he was the one that gave my first international assignment, and he told me, Javier, you know, you're going to be going into an environment that not many leaders of your age, and at this particular point in time, are going to have global responsibilities. When I went to Europe, I also oversaw Japan at the time. And he told me to make certain, and I don't know how Bob learned this, and he referenced a couple books that I read way back then, on being respectful of different cultures and making certain that you have an open mind in regards to people's beliefs and how they approach things. And I was incredibly impatient then. People will say that I'm impatient today, but I was incredibly impatient then. And just making certain that you respect the pace of how people work, because he was very aware that the work ethics in certain countries in Europe, not all countries, certain countries in Europe, which is good for them, we'll say it's good for them, are very, very different than some of the work ethics in other countries just in Europe alone, right? So I think learning to do some of those things and then learning how to be able to, you heard me say earlier, influence and bring people along, right? Sometimes you're going to get things in a meeting faster than everybody else, and you can't be arrogant about that or believe that you're the smartest person in the room. You need, because there's people in that room that know things more than you do in other areas, and just how you bring them along, right? And be an inclusive leader. And then once you do that and everybody's there, then you set your pace. Then that impatience comes along, and then, okay, so I got you all in, we all decided we're going to do this, now you're going to go at my pace, right? Because a CIO is an influencer, it's a pace setter, you're a creator, you have a lot of dimensions. But the most important thing to me now is influence, get everybody aligned, getting them agreed, and then I set the pace. And that's when I start making them sprint a little bit with me. Yeah, so those would be the things. Yes, Fred.
You've talked a lot about mentoring and being mentored. Are you mentoring people right now in the organization, outside of the organization?
Yes. So what does that look like? I have a female chief marketing officer that works for a company in Miami that I mentor, that I've known for years. I have 3 mentees inside of the company. Those 4 are all females. And then I have a 19-year-old nephew that I'm mentoring through his choices and helping him define curriculum. So yes, I do enjoy the mentoring piece, but I take it very seriously. And if I tell them, if you're going to be a mentee of me, with me, I'm going to have the hard discussion with you. I'm going to tell you, as a female, what you shouldn't be wearing, what you are wearing, what you're showing on the picture, on your Facebook and your Instagram, on your WhatsApp, and what you're representing. I'm going to tell you everything you don't want to probably hear from me, and I'll tell it to my nephew too, and to the men that I mentor. And if you can't deal with that, then I'm the wrong person, because I'm going to have the hard conversation. If you choose a mentor, and your mentor is telling you you're wonderful at everything you're doing, get rid of them. Get rid of them. Say you're worthless to me. You're not helping me. Same way, if you have a team member in your organization that agrees with everything you're doing as a leader, get rid of them, right? Because they're not helping you. You want the diversity of thought. You want constructive feedback that's immediate. And as leaders, you should learn to give constructive feedback that's immediate in a very respectful manner. So those things are important. But I always tell people, if you're not, my last mentor says, I got to tell you this, Javier, because nobody's going to tell you this. So let me tell you what you're doing wrong. And that's the conversation that he has. And it's straight up. And that's what I want to hear. I want to and I have incredible respect for him. And I still stay in contact with him. I spoke to you here last week. And that's what you want as a mentor. Don't have a mentor that's going to tell you how wonderful you are at everything that you're doing. But yeah, absolutely. It's important. Yes.
So 2 questions. The first one is we have a mentee mentor program in Quinnipiac here.
Do we have one, you're saying?
We do have one here.
Oh, yes.
Are you willing to become a mentor?
Yeah. So, look, I've offered to share my information to some of the individuals or all of you, and if you have any questions, I'm a texter, so it'll be by phone. And the answer is, look, I always make time. Look, to me, I remember days in my career when I was excited about having a $200 million budget and the big program that I was delivering, and today it's a multi-billion-dollar budget and some big programs. To me, today my biggest reward is about helping the next generation of leaders and individuals that I placed and the females that have done incredibly successful, that I left behind as CIOs that have a great career ahead of them, and the young CIOs that I use as an example. Jeff knows a young CIO that used to work for me in Germany, and I had a hard conversation with him. He wanted to leave Germany and come back to the US, and I said, hey, listen, I'm not going to say his name. He knows who. I said his name earlier in a smaller group, and I said, you know what, you haven't done anything meaningful. What do you mean you're going to come back to the US? So what do you say you did in Germany? You just ran the business? So I said, we have a big initiative coming up in the next 24 months. It's take you 18 months to deliver. You need to stay there and deliver that. You need to do that work, and then you come to the US. And he did that, and he came to the US, and then he got another role, and now, maybe you guys are going to Google him anyway, but now he leads the whole technology practice for PwC in North America. And to me, that's the biggest reward. And he texted me the other day, he calls me his big brother. But the point is, I've had tough discussions, and that's why you need to, as a mentor, if you're really going to be somebody's mentor, you need to take it serious. And if you're going to be somebody's mentee, you need to be serious about it. And you need to make demands on the mentor. And you need to sit down and say, these are the things that I want to work on, and build a plan. I need you to help me with my presence when I enter a room. I need you to help me when I don't feel comfortable when I give a presentation. My financial acumen is not too strong. And don't make a list of 15 things, because a mentor is not going to help you with 15 things, right? Choose a mentor that's going to help you with 2 or 3 things. Work with that mentor 8 to 12 months. Improve those things, and then decide if you want to extend and rehire that mentor for the other things or get a different mentor. But be pragmatic, but you know what? It's a business plan. It's your business plan. It's your brand. That's the relationship, and that's why I'm very selective when I have 4 or 5 mentees, because it's important to me, and I'll make time. And with me, you got to be flexible. I'll say, okay, we're going to talk at 10 o'clock at night, or we're going to talk at 6:30 in the morning, depending when my days start. And if everybody's that flexible with me, then it'll work, and that includes a Saturday or Sunday phone call or a FaceTime, whatever it may be. But yeah.
My second question is about the cybersecurity that you mentioned about. We have industry standard certifications and we have degrees. Normally when you employ people, what you look for a combination of both. Is it industry standard or any certification out there?
So today, each company, that's a great question. So do we look for certifications or degrees? We're looking for individuals. And in our company, we'll make an exception for today, and we're going to change this for certification. The company today, in my function, prefers degrees, and I'm changing some of those things right now. But every company, when you look at a cybersecurity, the skill sets that you need internally are very, very different depending on what the model is. We invest a lot of time in our team members that are in the CISO's vertical, and we train and we pay for certification, and we teach you the tools that we bring in, because every tool set's going to be different in each CISO's enterprise. And for those of you that are studying cyber here, I've already offered my CISO, and I spoke to him today at 7:30 in the morning. He's agreed to come here and spend time and talk about our platforms and what we look at and how he's recruiting. So Costas is very well renowned. He just got recognized as the CISO of the year by FireEye, who's one of the leading platforms in InfoSec. So he's agreed to come here and spend time with the university and help on the curricula, and also to kind of share the stuff that we do also. But yeah, we train a lot internally. Yes.
So seeing that there are a whole bunch of different industries that you could have entered coming out of school, how did you decide that to pursue your career in the consumer packaged goods industry?
Yeah, you know what? So like one of your colleagues today, I never knew I was going to be a CIO either. I was an architect major initially, and so one of the young students found that out from the internet and shared that with me today, and I was surprised that he knew that. But I entered actually Coopers and Lybrand, so I did a lot of financial modeling, and maybe that's why there's an affinity with me in finance and making sure to understand finance. I used to do financial modeling, and then I entered the financial services. I got hired out of Coopers and Lybrand, but I really, I think over time, when I went to the university, I took a couple of the classes in coding and things in BASIC, if I'm dating myself. I hope some of the older gentlemen can remember BASIC in here. And then I took COBOL, my goodness. And I liked coding, at least I understand it, so I can speak to my data scientists that are using Python and all these other tools nowadays, right? And I think to me, it was just more about applying technology, and then I got into the retail space, and I like the pace of retail. Retail is a very fast-paced business. You're manufacturing products, you're getting them on trucks, you're putting them on the shelf, you're doing forecasting, you're replenishing, and I like the pace of that industry. And I was very, very excited. I never thought I'd work for a great brand like Coca-Cola, let alone now a greater brand like Procter and Gamble. So I've been blessed in that sense, but I've applied myself and I've learned the business, and I understand a lot about supply chain. I was having a discussion about how this morning with Don, how supply chain is being disrupted around the world because of these e-tailers too. But I enjoy the consumer and fast-moving consumer goods business because it's a fast pace, and there's all kinds of technologies, from consumer ID graphs to platforms that you're building for your sales force to understand what's happening inside of one of our customers' four walls and what products are moving and how they're making money, and being able to show that to them to see what they order now more frequently from us. So you're really touching all aspects of the business, to building supply chain systems, to building cubing solutions, to how to load a truck, to the routing on how to deliver first, and you guys, everything you're studying. So to do all those things in a fast-moving consumer goods in my area of responsibility is just incredibly exciting. It's challenging, but incredibly exciting. Yeah, thank you.
So you mentioned a lot how IT is used in supply chain.
IT, sorry?
How IT is used a lot in supply chain and finance and consumer insight. Are there other areas of business that P&G implements information technology?
Yeah, so today, like I said, every company is a technology company. Our chairman just recently said we're like in every corner of the business from an IT perspective today. So whether we're working closely with the R&D group in regards to the innovation of new goods that we're going to be putting, whether we're working with new packaging that we're going to have with superior packaging that we want to have also in the industry, we work with every single category. So every single vertical has an embedded IT leader as like a CIO. And then in every single, we have 5 geographies on how we split the business. I have 5 embedded IT leaders. And underneath them, we have a whole organization of different IT leaders, from network engineers to data scientists to cloud architects to enterprise architects. So they're all in the organization. And what I do is I manage a small core group that are really, really my deep mastery in these respective areas, and we train those individuals that are in the field working closely to the business. So we're really embedded in the business across the whole business. Yeah, Jeff.
Can you talk for a minute about R&D? We all use your P&G products, and probably 24 of them in our homes. But can you talk a little bit about the R&D process around those products that we all know and love, and specifically around IoT and sensor technology and what may be coming down the road?
The last part's tough, and maybe because I do know what's coming down the road, but you guys have to go to CES. We're going to be at CES in January, and we'll share now. But so we're involved in all the good. So if you think about, let's talk about our Oral-B toothbrush, right? So today we have an Oral-B toothbrush that is connected to a Bluetooth device that tells you how much time you're spending brushing your teeth and what regions of the mouth you're spending, maybe lower right hand. So let's talk about my personal dental hygiene now. I do not do a good job on my lower right hand quadrant, as my dentist will tell me. So then I go home, and boy, that right hand quadrant looks great for the next 3 weeks, and then I forget about it again, and I forget about the lower right hand quadrant. But if you use the Oral-B toothbrush, it will tell you that you spend 20% in the left hand quadrant and 3% in the right. And it'll tell you how good of a job you're doing, and then you could send that information to mom and eventually to the dentist, right, if you want to do that. So those are just one example of things that we're doing. And then in January, we'll announce the next phase of that will even be even more sophisticated. So that's one example. But the way that we think about things today, because we think that the biggest e-tail channel in the future is the household, right? So we think about strategies around how do we own the bathroom experience. And then you could think of all the things that are in the bathroom and how do we know to replenish those, to give better insights of all of our products that are in the bathroom. How do we own the kitchen and the living, is there a future? I think we do have this in the market, right? I'm just thinking, there's a Febreze product that's on the market today that has an auto mister, right? That mist at certain times of the day. There could be something in the future that you could control because people are coming to your house and you want the one in the kitchen to mist more than the one in the living room, possibly, than more than the one in the bedroom. And maybe you want the one in the bedroom to just mist at 7 in the morning, right before you wake up and go into the shower. And so there's all kinds of things like that that'll start coming as products become more digital versus just physical, and the proliferation of IT. And I could go on to a whole bunch of other examples that are in our labs today. But we're involved in all those discussions, and we partner with R&D more so than ever before. And that's what's helping us accelerate things and go-to-market strategy. And before I joined the company, those businesses were working in independent verticals. And I've had some tough discussions with them and said, we're going to go ahead and launch this in 18 months. And I've told them straight out, why even do it? 18 months, you got to be kidding me. Why even do it? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? It's 18 months. I say, that's 18 months. It's too long. What is it going to take to do it in 6? What is it going to take to do it in 9? Well, we need, okay, say fine. I'll give you half of the money that you need. Let my team get involved, and we'll deliver it quicker. And those are the things that we're doing with the business now, and I'm getting involved, and they're seeing that change, and we are delivering to market quicker. And that's how you earn credibility, and you let your team members to come in into each one of the businesses and help them accelerate the delivery to the consumer. And some of the things that, I went to CES with the company for the first time in January, and so I saw all of our competitors in there, and I said, okay, so walk me over to our area. And they said, no, we're not here. And I said, well, how can we not be here? And we're not a company that normally likes to talk about the future products. And I said, well, we need to start talking about to people about our future products. So now, for the first time, we are going to have a very large footprint, first time in the history, if you have a point of view on that. But we will be at CES, and we'll be talking about all the future. And I've started to change now the mindset of the leaders that's saying, look, we need to start socializing things that we're an incredibly innovative company. Think about all the people that we touch and all the things that we do. And we've also been a very insular company in regards to communicating externally. And I'm starting to change that also. We need to start communicating externally the things that we're doing, because I'll hear that one of our principal competitors just shared that they're doing this type of work, and I'm not getting into details. And I said, we've been doing that for the last 5 months. So why didn't we share it first? Because the consumers now are hearing that they're more innovative than we are, but that's not the fact. So there's certain things, of course, you don't want to disclose your crown jewels that are really going to be something that's really going to be impactful, but you got to talk to your user base and say, look, we're innovative and we're doing all these things also, right? So there's a lot of changes in there, but we're pretty involved now, and I think we're starting to see some different behaviors now. Yeah, so we'll work very closely with Jeff. Brandon and here. Okay.
So now everything is becoming IoT. You mentioned it's big data you're collecting to be able to materialize these things. What's your social responsibility to the consumers in terms of protecting these data?
So as we're becoming IoT and everything's going to become IoT, big data, and what's our social responsibility? So our social responsibility starts with us having the whole cybersecurity capabilities that I've talked to you about, that we invest significant amounts of money. But now, as all of you have studied, I don't know if you've studied GDPR regulation, global data privacy regulation, now that Europe has come about now in regards to their data having to be secure and who could touch it and who could see it. So they're forcing regulation on all of us and how we keep our data, to the point that I'm already thinking I'm going to have to build a cloud service capability in China, a cloud capability in Russia. And let's see what happens with California, because California, I don't know if everybody's heard, they're talking about GDPR in the state of California now. And in Europe, it's already there. So we had to implement a whole GDPR, Global Data Privacy Regulation Act, which creates complication for us in regards to how we look at data and how we can push data back and forth. But yeah, so there's regulation that's driving that. There's going to be even more sophisticated regulation coming, I believe, for sure. And then, of course, naturally, part of that is our whole cybersecurity approach on how we look at our data and how we protect it.
So question, P&G's got hundreds of thousands of people working with you.
Yeah, the extended network, yes. Distributors, partners, suppliers, yes. Yes.
And you have a huge responsibility, obviously. What does your direct report population look like? How many people do you deal with as sort of direct under you?
So direct under me, it's 26 direct reports that I have. So one in every one of our categories, which is 10, one in 5 of our regions, that's 15. And then I have my CISO, my Chief Development Officer, my Chief Data Analytics Officer, my legal representative, my communications representative, my finance, HR. So yeah, it's almost 30.
And I ask that question because a lot of folks, younger folks, when they see these large companies, they might imagine that you have thousands of people reporting to you. that's not like that.
Yeah, that's right. And then as a leader, you know, they're all at different levels, right? In regards to succession planning, who could be my successor, who still needs some more development in certain areas. And when I first joined, I gave those 15 full assessments. Wanted to understand their financial acumen, leadership capability, technology capability, and I build individual development plans for each one of them. They were very receptive. They were nervous at first. They thought, well, we're not going to be here. There's been some of that. I've had to change out some leaders for sure. But I think it's probably a 80% investing in current leaders and bringing in 20% because there had to be some change. Because you have to invest in the existing organization. If not, the organization's not going to follow you. And you got to be patient in that development. But yeah, so it's been probably an 80-20 formula for me. But yeah, it's, you know, and there's different touch points with each one of the leaders, right, in regards to how you're helping them develop and coaching them and along the process and things of that sort. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go here and then we'll come back here.
How much time did you spend with every single one under you to really get to know them and tailor a plan to develop their capabilities? Yeah, so the question was how much time I've spent with each one of my leaders to develop their capabilities. So every 6 weeks I have a meeting with my core leaders that are my vice presidents and their peers. And the following 6 weeks, I have the vice presidents who are the more senior leaders with all my directors of IT and those 15 businesses that I told you. They come and join. So they learn, but I force them to then share what are their business strategies of what they're doing or how they're helping the business drive growth and what their dependency is on the vice president's verticals. So it gives them an opportunity to grow and present. And they get some very tough questions from the vice presidents, very tough questions for me because they got to learn if they're going to come and sit at this table in the future. This is what you need to expect. And then some of them get disappointed, and some of them, because then I also have one-on-ones with them. So every 2 weeks I have a one-on-one person, it's phone call or in person if they're there. And they'll tell me, Javier, I just didn't do well. I said, you're fine. You did perfectly fine. Like the vice presidents know, this is a developmental opportunity. We're all working together here. We're all on one team. It's okay. We're going to have good days and bad days, but this is an opportunity for growth. And some of them feel uncomfortable. And you know, sometimes our VPs could be tough. And I say, you need to back off a little bit on this, right? You know, go work with them, go reach out to them, make sure that they understand you're supportive and things of that nature, right? So my job is that 30% in the organization, because those field members and I tell my VPs, by the way, CISO, you don't understand 60% of what she understands in the business because she's sitting with the president all day. So you need to learn what she's doing, and you need to teach her what you're doing, right? So I even have my vice president, my CISO, and my vice president of data science and analytics, they're doing reverse mentoring with each other because he doesn't understand what the CISO work looks like, and they're loving it. And I recommended, I said, why don't you guys do some reverse mentoring together? And they talk about it openly. Yes, Costas is teaching me. You'll meet Costas when he comes here, and then he'll say, yeah, Guy's teaching me on this side, right? So we do a lot of that cross-pollination. And when I see some behaviors I don't like, I call them out and say, listen, you need to go spend time with that leader. You need to go travel over there. Remember, they're the next generation. If you're going to compete for my job, I need somebody to fill your job. So I do a lot of those things, and I have a lot of one-on-one time with them also. And again, you know, it's not always pleasant when they talk to me because I'm very direct about areas that they need to continue to work on and deliver on and build, right? But that's what you need to do. Yeah, it's important. Yes.
With the impending water crisis, will Procter and Gamble invest in waterless toilets?
In waterless toilets? Yeah, you know, we haven't thought about that, but I know, look, I was with a group of individuals at a leading institution in Boston, and we're talking about the desalination process and the Google X project, and it's a big issue that's going to come to all of us in the next, who knows, 7 to 10 to 15 years, right? But we really haven't thought about that. You know, we don't manufacture toilets or anything of that sort, but I think it's something that's very important. I know that it's something that was top of mind for my previous employer as we use water sources to deliver the consumable products that Coca-Cola delivers. You know, I know it's top of mind for a lot of companies that are in that space. It's important for the world. So if we have an opportunity to contribute in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure we would.
What are your thoughts on the price of water being increased?
The price of water being increased?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I sometimes jokingly say if I would have known that we would be paying so much for water today, I would have gotten in that business a long time ago. But yeah, it's just, it's a horrible situation. There's parts of the world today where water crisis is. I have some friends that I've supported in India where they've gone to remote areas of India and villages and build water wells, right? Because there's a scarcity. And it's going to be a serious issue. So I'm glad you're thinking about that. We had one more question here. And you had one as well? Oh, okay. We were just pointing. Okay.
Since P&G really controls just a bunch of consumer brands, does that pose issues for the data organization and storage? Is it all organized together in one spot, and then each brand can kind of mine through that for what they need, or do you keep it all more separated?
Yeah. So the question was, do we keep all the data in one location, or do we keep it separate? So you heard me talk about earlier about optimizing, enabling, and then transforming. So in the past, it was all centralized in one location. So now we're optimizing that and making it regional, right? And then there'll be another layer. So you have a huge data lake, and then that data lake pushes into the regional hubs is our strategy. And then from there, you'll have layers above that basically, depending on what tool we use, whether it's business objects or Tableau to pull up the presentation layers. But so we're optimizing and enabling a different strategy around data right now. Yeah.
Javier, we want to extend a very, very big thank you to you for not only speaking to this group today, but to the groups that you spoke with this morning. It's been absolutely fantastic. I think everybody's taken a lot away today from what you shared with us. So if we could give Javier a big round of applause.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you.